Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Janae and I'm the owner of Confidently You Creations. If you are not new here, welcome back. So for today's tutorial, we're going to be doing a half and half tumbler. Half of it's going to be a red rose vinyl and then the other half is going to be a red glitter with some strips in the middle, some vinyl strips. So stick around to the end to see the ending result. It is completely beautiful, but I can be biased. So I upload every 2 weeks now. Me and my husband kind of came to the conclusion that every 2 weeks is great, so we give you guys great content every time we upload. So where you guys don't have to keep up with whenever I upload, push the subscribe button to where you'll get a notification every time I subscribe. That is a tongue twister. Push the subscribe button. Anyway, so let's go ahead and Alrighty guys, I have already prepped and sanded my 20-ounce Skinny Tumbler. So now I'm going to use my lid as a guide. There are these lines in the tumbler, in the top, and I think they purposely put them there for that reason. I think so. But I'm going to try to point it out to you guys again where those little lines are. So I'm just going to take my pencil and mark off both sides. Can you see the little lines? Yep, right there. So it just makes it easy to cut out that middleman of using a whole bunch of different methods. It's right there. On the lid. So I'm going to use some painter's tape after I'm done marking off my center. And I'm just going to use that as a guide to mark the center and tape half of the tumbler off. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to both sides. If this is a little bit challenging for you, if you feel like, you can't pull the painter's tape to make a straight line, it is so easy. It's hard to not make a straight line with the painter's tape. You can always do the same thing you did with the top, the pencil. You could do that same thing with the bottom. Just measure the circumference of the cup, split the circumference in half. So if it's at 8 inches, if it's 8 inches around in circumference, just measure 4 inches around, mark it with the pencil to both sides, and then take your painter's tape take the painter's tape and mark the top pencil mark to the bottom pencil mark, and then you have your straight line. But it's super easy to do it this way, and yeah, you won't mess it up, I promise. So now I'm going to go ahead and connect the two sides with the painter's tape. This is quite easy to do also. That black dot in the middle, that can be your guide, or you can simply just connect the two pieces of painter tape. Make sure there's no overlaps. Please excuse my nails. I am going to get them done before this video is over. It's been stressful, okay? But I'm going to cut that other little piece off that's kind of overlapping there. So you want to make sure any pieces are not overlapping to where when you go spray paint, it'll be an even half and half. So with these half and half tumblers, V-split tumblers, you want to make sure to measure before you go spray paint. So I already know that my tumbler is a little bit over 9 inches in circumference. So it was like 4.5 and 16th, that little 16th mark on both sides. So I know that mine was even. So whatever your circumference is, divided by 2, and boom, there you go. So I'm going to go ahead and finish taping off half of the tumbler. You can do this with painter's tape. If you don't want to waste your painter's tape, then you can always use like saran wrap to mark off half of the tumbler. You can use parchment paper, you can use whatever it is you want, but I'm just going to go ahead and finish taping it off with painter's tape because it's pretty clean and sleek and it's just less messy. So yeah, pretty simple there. So I went outside and I spray painted it red, half of my tumbler red, and I'm going to use Karaling glitter from Peachy Olive Glitters, and I'm just going to go ahead and place like a drop of epoxy on, smooth that nice thin coat to go ahead and place our glitter. And for the bottom, you definitely want to make sure you get the grooves. Don't put too much at the bottom because, you know, like I said, in those grooves, it can just kind of like, I guess, seep up right there. You want to make sure it doesn't like go underneath the tape. So you want to just make sure to place a thin coat there and just making sure it's not like an excessive amount right there where those grooves are. But yeah, you're just gonna go ahead and just give it all you got right here on the glitter parts. The best part of doing the tumblers is the glitter. So yeah, you just want to make sure you evenly coat it, tap off the excess and excess. I keep saying excess, like what am I accessing? It's excess. And then you want to go ahead and remove your tape immediately after you are finished. You do not want to let it dry with the tape on there. You want to make sure to do this while it's wet to where it can easily come off, because if you do let it dry with it with the tape on there, you risk like the tape getting stuck or like some pieces like peeling off with the tape. So like some of your glitter peeling off with the tape. So just go ahead and take it off while it's wet. Alrighty, so we are done with our glittering part. So we're gonna let this dry for about 3 to 4 hours since it's a thin coat, okay? Alrighty, so now it's been drying for 3 to 4 hours and I have sprayed it. Ooh, look at my nails, y'all. I got them done. I told y'all I was gonna get them done by the end of the video. But I went ahead and spray painted this with Rustoleum's clear gloss sealer. As you can see, it's not coming off, and I did spray this 3 times because I did not want it to come off while we're doing this next part. Okay, so again, I'm going to measure because we're going to be doing a lot of that to make sure everything is perfect. And again, it's 4.5 and that little 16th mark. I did have some glitter on my hands from the holder, not from the cup. So you'll see me like looking at my fingers a couple times because from the cup turner is like glitter and paint on it. Anyways, so I'm going to measure our vinyl the same dimensions that we measured. So I'm going to cut it at like that 4.5 and that 16th mark. Doesn't really matter for the height. It matters for the length, but usually these are like super long, so you don't have to measure the height. Typically is going to cover the tumbler. So you want to make sure the length around matches the dimensions that you measured. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off that little white piece because we don't want that to be on our tumbler and we don't want to like overlap it. So I just usually cut that piece off, and then I'll measure out the amount that I need to measure, or excuse me, that I need to cut. But just make sure you're measuring as much as you can to make sure you don't have to cut anything twice. So you're going to go ahead and peel back just a little bit to place it on the tumbler. You don't want to peel back the entire thing. We're going to slowly be peeling this off of the paper. So you want to go ahead and line it up in the middle or wherever you want it. So I'm just going to measure mine, or excuse me, place mine in the middle of the cup. And I typically don't like to be like right up on the glitter. I will leave like a small space, like very small, because we're going to be placing vinyl lines to separate these two to make, to have a clean finish. So I literally leave like a millimeter of space. I don't get it like perfectly right on there. So we're going to take our scraping tool, being very careful not to scratch our design, but we're doing this to get all of the air bubbles out of the vinyl as we're putting it on. So just slowly do this part to where, like I said, you have minimal air bubbles. And as you can see, I had some, but then I went back with my finger and I just got them out. I was afraid that I was going to scratch it, so I just stopped using that tool and I just used my fingers and it worked just fine. All right, and at the end of it, if you do have some air bubbles that you can't get out with your scraper tool, your squeegee, just make a small fine line with your crafting knife to get a little bit of the air out, and it works just fine. The epoxy will not get underneath it, don't worry. Just make a small incision and to let some of that air out. So now for the top and the bottom, we're going to pull. This vinyl is not as stretchy as like some of the normal vinyl that we use, so it's not as forgiving. So just kind of be mindful of that. But yeah, you just want to basically pull as much as you can to try to get it over the lip there of the tumbler, and then you're just going to trim off any excess vinyl that you have. And we're going to be sanding this later to get a nice clean finish, to expose some of that like a fine line of stainless steel to get a nice seal. So just kind of trim it right there at the top. Like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to be sanding it anyways, okay? So yeah, I'm just going to be removing just some of that excess there just to get it out of the way. So this is how I am going to get a clean line at the bottom. I'm just going to go ahead and place some painter's tape across the vinyl side. Be very careful not to peel your vinyl back up. And then we're just going to take our crafting knife and cut right underneath the painter's tape to have a clean, fresh line underneath that, okay? So my crazy self, I don't know what I was thinking when I originally did this, knowing that I was going to put half of the roses, the vinyl on half of it and then glitter the other half. I only glittered half of the bottom. So as you probably noticed that when I was cutting the bottom, like, okay, well, what is she gonna do with the rest of it? I actually went back afterwards and I glittered the bottom after I did this part. I glittered it and I sealed it. Again, I sealed it like twice, and then, I continued the steps. So If you do forget like I did, you can just go back and you can just glitter the other half. But whenever you do go place your painter's tape in the beginning, you can then cut off the whole bottom to where you can glitter the whole bottom. Alrighty, so like I said, I went back and I glittered the bottom. And I went ahead and placed 2 coats of epoxy on this. So I won't bore you with the sanding part. You've seen me do this before, but I'm just going to sand the top really well, exposing a thin line of stainless steel to where we have a nice seal for our final coats of epoxy. Be very careful on the vinyl part. It basically sands very easy, so please don't be very aggressive on your vinyl part. But you can be aggressive on the glitter part, okay? And you also do not want to sand the vinyl part where your roses are, or whatever vinyl that you're using. That part should already be smooth. You just want to sand the part where you glittered, and then you want to also sand around the bottom at the base of the tumbler as well, as you can see. So you see I went it back and glittered the bottom. And be very careful also of the bottom where the glitter and the vinyl meet, okay? You can always put more epoxy and sand later. Alrighty, so now that we have sanded it, and I went ahead and washed it with soap and water, and then I placed some alcohol on there to get any debris off. I cut my my decals out, and the gold line that I'm using I'm going to put that one on first. This line is actually 0.80, and I measured it to about 8.5 inches long, okay? Because I'm going to be placing another line on top of this gold line. So I'm going to be placing like a double lines. So that is why I cut the gold one at 0.80, and then I cut the next line that you're going to see. It's going to be a black line that goes on top of this one. That one was actually 0.1. Okay. So now you're going to, this part is very easy too. You're just going to, just like we did with the painter's tape, pick your spot at the top, right in the middle of the two to separate it. And then you're just going to firmly press down and put your first gold line on. So this is the black one that I was referring to. This one is 0.1 by 8.5. And if you need me to show you how I did the lines, just let me know, and I'll do a separate video of how to like do your decals, offsets, and all that stuff. But for the most part, this part is pretty easy. You're just placing the black line right in the center of the gold line. And this vinyl is a little bit more, forgiving because you're placing vinyl on vinyl. So if you mess up, you can just, take it off pretty easy. As you can see, it wasn't like perfectly in the middle of where I wanted it. So I just lifted it up and placed it, where I wanted it to be. This tumbler is so pretty. I mean, I could be biased, but at the end, it's going to be so freaking pretty. Okay, so now we're just going to do the same thing to the other side. So I won't bore you and I won't talk you to death. I'm just going to go ahead, fast forward it, because you already saw this part where I placed the gold one, and then I'm going to place the black one on top. Alrighty, then now once I'm done with both, I'm just gonna go ahead and trim right there at that line that we sanded, where we exposed that thin line of stainless steel. Just gonna cut right there. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and weed out my the name that I'm gonna put on here. It does have an offset to it, so the offset is going to be gold. Kind of sort of like the lines that I put on there. Like if you look at it, looks like the black had an offset of the gold lines. But anyway, so it just kind of matches. So I'm just gonna go ahead and weed out that to where we can go ahead and place it on our tumbler. Alrighty, so again, you measure. I measured around it to make sure that it was even as far as the top and the bottom of her name, and then also side to side. I believe I had about 2 inches from the top to the bottom of her name, and then we're going to use the hinge method since it is a larger name. I literally just cut one side, put that press that down firmly, and then the same thing to the other side to where the decal doesn't move or doesn't get crooked or anything like that. Same thing for the offset. Typically it is easier to do this it was late, don't judge me, but I just kind of gave myself a harder time doing it this way. But typically it's easier to just put the offset on the like the black part. I don't know just the main part of the name. It's typically easier to do that off of the cup, like on your transfer paper. So I'm kind of making it a little bit harder on myself because the name is cursive, and so that means it's all one piece, which makes it harder to put on the cup. If it was single letters, then that's fine, but cursive letters, you typically want to do it off of the cup. So you'll just basically layer your vinyls, and you'll put this gold part on top of the black part, and then you'll put it all on the cup as one piece instead of 2 separate pieces. But I like to make it difficult on myself, so why not? But for you guys, make sure to just do it in one piece and not try to do it this way. As you can see, I was kind of trying to turn it so y'all can see, so I can see. But anywho, I mean, you'll get it lined up. It's not too difficult. But if you're just starting out doing tumblers, it can be a little bit challenging. So anyway, we'll just continue. Y'all can see my G got stuck. So I had to abort mission. Just take all of it off. And nothing ripped or anything. But I had to abort the mission, guys. So no big deal. Everything's still lined up, the way I wanted it to. No biggie. My G, my G just wasn't being a G for me today. So I'm just gonna go back and put the G back together. It came apart on me, so I'm just gonna go ahead and put it back together, which is quite easy. This vinyl is pretty easy to work with. It's thicker and it's easier, so I'm just gonna go ahead and take the dot out of my eye and make sure all the vinyl is pushed down and not sticking up, and we're gonna go ahead and place our final coats of epoxy, guys. That's it. All right, when it was all said and done, I ended up placing 3 coats of epoxy on this beauty, and I let it dry for 6 to 8 hours. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up if it helps you out at all. Also, I upload videos every other Friday, so therefore, to where you don't have to keep up with the schedule, push the subscribe button to where you don't miss a video. Also, if you missed the last video, please click the icon to the right to see the latest video. Thanks so much for watching.